Nachmittag euch allen. Toll, dass ihr alle
Good afternoon. Great that you are here. It's very crowded in here. I think it's raining outside, but it's anyway a great panel. A big request for you. It's the last panel. I really would like to throw this cube to the very back for a question. So please ask questions because we have great experts on the stage. So it's a silent presentation here. Please wear your headphones because we will switch off the sound in the dome. Our color is blue here, so whatever is shown in blue here on your headphones, then it's great. It's the Pavlov effect. I come to the stage and you wear your headphones. That's great. That looks good. And now we switch to the silent mode. So it is a consistent and persistent digital space that by a virtual and physical world, this space is created. That seems to be great. You want to have such a space, two of it? No? So I also thought at the beginning, what is that? This is the definition of the metaverse. Consistent, persistent, something that is mixed in reality. You do not really know what that is, but would you understand is that this thing is a big one. So it is a big trend, and I'm really happy that we can clarify that on the stage now. We have the most important experts that we have in Germany on stage, so clap your hands for our experts.
Genau. Du glaubst, es weit weg sitzt von mir, Stefan, kriegst du keine blöden Fragen, ne? So hast du dir das gedacht. So hast du dir das gedacht. Schön, dass ihr da seid.
Great that you're here.
Genau, ihr habt ein Mikro an der Seite.
It's a big pleasure for me. You have your microphone, exactly. And I would just like to present you, introduce you, Patrick Marinoff, Managing Director, Aston Martin Europe. Welcome. Then Stefan Wenz, Business Development Manager at Epic Games. Great to have you here. And another Stephan Baier, Head of Immersive Experience at MHP. Now you can clap your hands for them.
Und ich habe gleich mal eine Frage.
And I have a question to all of you, Metaverse, etc. I don't ask you who has ever been there, but who has a digital avatar? Just raise your hand. Just a few. 5, 6, 7. Not much. Not much. We have to change that. You have to convince them that this is cool. So a question to you. What about you? Do you have an avatar? And how can we recognize it? I don't have an avatar.
Wenn ich mir einen machen würde,
if I would create one, it would be similar to you, maybe to a spy, maybe to a spy on the screen, who only drinks shaken and not stirred things. So we do not know if this is really correct, but anyway. But what about you? You have an avatar? How do I recognize it? I have, of course, an avatar. Last week I created one based on a scan of myself, but I do not really think it's so beautiful. But if I go to the Metaverse, then I would like to have a completely different appearance so that no one recognizes me and that I can be what I want to be, a unicorn. Well, if you ask my daughter, definitely. Yes, a pink unicorn, of course. You can also change. So today I feel pink, I'm a unicorn, tomorrow I'm something different. What about you? What's your avatar? Yes, I have one, and several ones, actually, because this is the nice thing about the digital world, that you do not only have one identity, but you can have several identities that you can assume. And my most frequently used avatar is my MHP profile picture in Teams because I don't switch on my camera. That's great. But you can program it that it nods from time to time. Great. So the avatar is just one part, but that's not the metaverse. At the beginning, I would like to give a definition. We all talk about that, but we do not know what this is. Stefan, this is your main job, actually, at epic games. So just explain Metaverse, Web3, what's that? What do we talk about? Well, if we talk about the Metaverse, then actually we talk about the digital representation of the physical world. It's not actually only the physical representation, but an extension where both worlds can influence each other. So whatever happens in the physical world is somehow mapped digitally, and whatever happens in the digital world also has an influence on the physical world. And how that works, we will talk about that later. And Web3, that's the next big thing. So what's Web3? If this is Metaverse, what is then Web3? Well, I think Metaverse just defines a computer-generated space where human interaction can take place. So if we have team calls at MHP, we are also kind of working in the Metaverse, but not in an immersive Metaverse, but in a really normal 2D Metaverse. But Web3 is the logical evolution step of Web 2. This is what we have already. And I think decisive for Web 3, or the main difference, will be that digital ownership is possible. Well, that's a lot of information. I think it's like playing Mikado when you try to define the Metaverse. So it's like having one stick in your hand and you see, oh, there are 200 others. So we try to get closer to the real definition. So for all of those who watch in the Web 2 world, if you have a question, use Slido. I get your questions here on the screen on my tablet, and I can ask you questions then, and I can throw a bit, so you're, well, more at risk in the front rows than in the back. But if you want to say something, tell me, then I throw this box to you. So just raise your hand, and then I will, well, throw this microphone into your direction. So, a critical question, Stefan.
I
take a look at both Stefans. What happens if you do not go to the Metaverse? If I just continue like that and I say, no, I don't want to use the Metaverse. Well, then I try to answer the question. That's a good question. Thank you for that. I think you have to differentiate. Metaverse, from our point of view, as we experience the Metaverse or as we design it, it's not the one space that happens digitally, but we talk about the age or era of Metaverse. Because we spend more digital time, more than 10 or 15 years ago, because the channels, the digital channels in our everyday life are getting more and more, and we pay more attention to them and consume them more. And I think the Metaverse, this is what we experience. We experience it on different levels, like Fortnite, for instance. In the US, I think more children play Fortnite than doing all other sports together. So you see that this is a really attraction factor, this digital world. And in the future, we will see more and more worlds we have access to. And then we have to differentiate. There are worlds that will be immersive. So often the Metaverse will need a device like goggles to have access to this space. But I think the space will be available everywhere. And we will live in an era of Metaverse that starts now. Maybe I can add something to that. There was a time where there was no internet and someone was asked, what's the internet? Do we need the internet? Today, without internet, it's not possible anymore. The same will happen with the Metaverse. This is nothing that we can stop. This is something that will hit us all sooner or later. The question is just, how much can we participate? How much can we shape it? And of course, as it was the case for the internet at the beginning, no one knows what it will look like at the end of the day. The 2D Metaverse that we have with Teams calls, etc., then a 3D space that we have with gaming. Maybe we have an augmented reality application or a VR application. Who knows? We all learning. And this is the nice thing about Metaverse. We all do not know what it will look like at the end of the the day, but we are part of the journey. I really like that, because I always say, well, I don't really know what it is, but the fair answer is it's difficult to define what it really is. There was this novel in the 1980s where it was for the first time described. But now let's try to describe it. Fortnite, more teenagers play Fortnite than do some sports. So it seems like it's the next Snapchat, such a teenager thing. So when you're older, it's not interesting anymore. But this is not the case. These are also business applications. So what kind of gap can the metaverse close from your point of view? From Aston Martin's point of view, or from the point of view of an automotive manufacturer, it's a marketing instrument or a sales instrument. So digitally, over a certain distance, you can show the product immersively. So to raise attention of your customers. And I really think this is a good starting point. The question was, what happens if you do not participate in the metaverse? Maybe in the short run, nothing will happen for a car manufacturer, but in the long run, maybe we see an effect, because our kids, our teenagers have a different access to all the digital world. And if you do not build competence now, you will feel it in some years. We also have an example here, but we will see that only later. I hope that you stay here and take a look at that later. So, Stefan, you wanted to say something, and then I go to the audience in case there's a question. Yes, Patrick, I can just agree. I think that in the future, the digital touch points with regard to the customer expectations will be as relevant as the physical touch points. If you want to sell a product, then you have to be available in the metaverse. You have to attract customers and motivate customers to take a look at your product. And for this, you use the digital world. And I think that you can use the digital channels for exactly that. So we have some questions. I will ask the questions for you at home, but someone here in the audience, oh, there is someone. That's kind of a medium distance. It was not a good idea to sit in the first row in school. It's also not a good idea here. So let's try it.
Danke schön. Das ist die Lieferkette.
Thank you. That's the supply chain of today. Thank you.
Muss ich das? Ach so.
Einfach nur reinsprechen. Das geht.
Just talk. It works.
Ich habe eine interessante, weil was Sie gerade gesagt haben.
What you've just said, I really find that interesting. I thought about VR, goggles, augmented reality when I think of metaverse. But you say with Teams, we have been doing that for a while now, and we do that actively now. No, two things that I realized with myself during the pandemic, where my question would be, is that like the metaverse, or how we live in the metaverse? So what I did was, I thought about, yes, I have my camera at home, so how can I make sure that that I look at those at the other side of the screen? How can I ensure that it looks natural for them? And then I also bought a VR goggle, and I thought, okay, I sit a lot, and I thought I want to work when I lie down. So this is why I bought the goggles. And I lay on the sofa, and the screen was like hovering over me. So this works. But, well, without the VR world, this is something that changes our working world, clearly, right? So actually, I can give you several answers. You are really far ahead when you start working with the VR goggles. So of course you're ahead of times. But absolutely correct. When you take a look at Web3, where the communities meet, it's often in Discord channels. So this is, at the end of the day, it's text chat. This is not far away from IOC, but you can use the access via tokens and NFTs, and you you can validate the content. And parties are happening there. So DJs are active and play music. So I think, yes, we experience the metaverse, and it will have an impact on the working world. But this brings us more to crypto, VAO, decentralized autonomous organization, because based on tokenomics, whole communities can organize themselves that have a common purpose as an organization, and then they work together like we work together at MHP. So that will have a big impact on the working world, because then you are not part of a company anymore, but part of a DAO. That was the nerd answer to a nerd question, okay, DAO, etc. So I lower the level now here a bit, but maybe you can hand over the microphone to the next speaker. I also have a question. So 20 years ago, I could see the beginnings of virtual reality. There was an app that was called Second Life. And there it was a trend at the beginning, and then it got neglected. So maybe I see parallels here between Second Life and Metaverse. This is a question that's new to you, right? Yeah, well, Second Life, on the one hand, it was far ahead of time. If we had a Second Life today, the impact would be different, because now people are more used to live in the digital world. Back then it was not so established. Also, internet was not so established. So this is why the fail was clear, basically. The difference between Second Life that we had then and the Metaverse that we have today, or that we want to have today, is that Second Life was a closed world, and the Metaverse is based on open standards, so that you can also switch between the individual worlds that are set up by a brand, for example, or that are set up by us with Fortnite. So you have an interaction between the worlds. And the third thing is the interaction between physical and digital world. That was absolutely not the case with Second Life. That's the last aspect that has changed. Thank you. So keep the cube. We make another round, so you can then throw the cube. We continue before we come to the business cases. One more thing. We are talking about the open metaverse. We will have an example later on where it's about the own metaverse that you can set up as an organization or company. But the big metaverse, the open one, I've seen that this week a big tech alliance was established. Metaverse companies like Meta, Apple Games, Microsoft, 33 other companies are part of it. It's called the Metaverse Standards Forum. And here it says so that everything is regulated and controlled, and it's pushed forward with that. So what do you regulate with that, Stefan, and how do you push forward the Metaverse with that? It's exactly about defining the open standards that you can use for collaboration. Marc Petit, our VP, has long since a metaverse, a podcast on the metaverse, where it's exactly about the standards that you need to comply with to be able to be part of the open metaverse, so that you then have the interaction between the individual worlds, and that no individual silos are created, so that when you are in the Aston Martin metaverse, you can also go into the Porsche metaverse world. So I want to have the opportunity to have a race between the Aston Martin and my Porsche that I bought for the metaverse. And the winner is clear. And that should be, well, but to define the open standards, to come up with that, this is the target. So not only technical standards, but also regulations, the social, political stuff is also discussed. Okay. Google and Apple and Aston Martin and MHP, I did not find that in the group, but in theory, everyone can fill in the form and join. So why haven't you joined so far? Or do you think, no, you do not want to define the rules? What about you?
Also wir sehen uns jetzt nicht als originäre.
Well, we do not see ourselves as the builder of the metaverse, but a service enabler. We try to create access for companies, access so that the companies can then create products. So we like to create private metaverse for Aston Martin, for instance, like for the one-to-one buying experience that we developed for Aston Martin. Here it's really about connecting the dealers with the customers so that the dealers has all the tools to present the product to the customer at any place in the world in a way as if the product would be really there. So, and we do not see ourselves as a builder of the open metaverse, but as an enabler to create product experience at the end of the day. And this makes the distribution of the tasks clear. So MHP builds on a platform a world that we shape. So we use the space to present our vehicles, and then something else that's interesting, then we connect the worlds. I really think this is interesting. So I can imagine that your avatar then goes through the Aston Martin world and takes a look at the car. This is exactly what we are interested in, this link between the different worlds to have a holistic experience then. And I think the world, disappears out there. It is not the sound out there, it is the rain. It's really loud here. Maybe you can increase the volume because the rain in here is really, really loud. So we will take a look at your metaverse project in a minute. It's like with the Bachelor that, you see after the break. We will have it later on. So first of all, the technical stuff. The colleague is using VR goggles, so you do not have the access. What do you really need to really, make a metaverse, do have a metaverse experience? You do not need much. When you have a computer at home where you can watch a YouTube video, you can enjoy a metaverse experience. If you use the cloud as the rendering power, that is what is done with the one-to-one buying experience. So on different levels, I can use it. I can have the completely immersive AR goggles, but I can also sit in front of the computer and click through the world. It's like YouTube. I just need a computer for that. That can show a video stream. And, different levels, and the technology stacks just needs to be the same this is based on, and then it's a simple transfer task. What about the computer at home? This will be interesting. Also, the network coverage, the rendering is interesting. What's the role of 5G and mobile edge computing? I mean, a showroom is nice if I have a glass fiber network connection, but you sit here under your umbrella and you want to show the configurator on the smartphone. That might be a problem. What do you need for that?
We consider it a task of ours to provide access to the metaverse and to create an experience that is easy. Rendering capacities, graphic cards in the cloud that allow for these high-quality product visualizations can be sent to the user, and the user only needs a stable mobile network connection. The Aston Martin dealer, to be able to provide that experience, only needs 4G. He doesn't even need 5G, just a stable connection. And then by outsourcing the rendering capacity into the cloud, the access is very easy. Stay with me for a second. We need to make sure that the sound is okay. Is it okay for you? Yeah, it's loud enough. Sorry for the interruption. We don't have your headphones, so we need to make sure that we hear everything. So we also hear your questions. Let's get to the questions from home. This consortium, Meta Epic Game. Marcus has an interesting question. Will the age of Metaverse be dominated by central companies like Microsoft or by decentralized networks as blockchain? That's a very interesting question, very exciting. The Web 2 or Web 1 idea has already been a very decentralized approach, and we are currently experiencing the same approach with Web 3. Of course, Meta, Google, Apple, and other large companies are, of course, interested in owning this space, and it's currently been discussed who has the ownership. In my opinion, it would be really a pity if the access would be limited through the gatekeepers, because a McKinsey study has already shown us it bears enormous growth potential, and this growth potential should happen decentralized and not run via central platforms. I think that would be very conducive to the idea of a metaverse. Yes, it's exactly about something that is open to everyone, to create an exchange between the platforms. Only then can this become a success. You've seen it with the internet, the HTTP standard that has become established as a protocol allowed for the actual success of the internet. If everybody starts to create their own metaverse with their own standards, at some point one technology will prevail, and this can only be a technology that is open to everyone. Another question. A question that deals with a summary. I think we have to summarize the characteristics of Metaverse. Is Metaverse not more like a buzzword of things going on in the internet, or does it stand for more? Can you summarize? Maybe from the manufacturer's point of view, yes. Thank you for letting me answer that question. Well, be it a buzzword or not, the question is whether it works or not. We made a giant leap forward with the new design of our configurator. We increased the traffic with it. Whether Metaverse is only understood as an avatar that you can use to live a second life, I think that would be a very narrow definition. In our opinion, it's more. We try to create that digital space and build up a functioning business model in it, and this bears a huge potential. Let me add to that, Stefan. I assume that the metaverse topic is, of course, a buzzword. It will never be about the metaverse, but it will be about the values that are conveyed via these channels. You don't say today, I go surf the internet, and this is exactly what will happen to the metaverse. It'll become a medium. It is about receiving the content so that it creates value for me. It won't matter whether it's a metaverse application or not. The main difference between the internet as we know it and the metaverse is the social interaction part. If I surf the internet today, I use Amazon or some other platform, and I consume something, a unilateral consumption. But in the metaverse, you've got many players interacting, new forms of interaction, new horizons open up to all the stakeholders. But you can also play simple games. Fortnite, Roblox, or whatever you choose as a gamer today are only as successful as they are because you can experience something together with your friends. And if you take a look at the first games, I played them alone at home on my computer. Then we had the LAN parties where we met in the physical world to play games together. And today I play with my friends, one sitting in Stuttgart, the other one in Munich, and the other one in Australia. You've been referring to these discs, and my brother was so annoyed when I sometimes lost one of his discs. I promised you that we take an actual look at that. So one question to you before that. Fortnite is the perfect example. It's my favorite example of a business case. Ariana Grande and other artists said, well, why not? I have my avatar and I'll let someone else sing. I can be in Chicago and give a concert. So she turned that into a business case. Now, we are not all artists. Can you give us examples that have nothing to do with a digital showroom? Well, it's not only about selling product in the metaverse. Why do you want to have an Aston Martin? Because it represents certain values, because I want to identify with that. And if I can manage that the teenagers playing Fortnite today identify with the brand and the product, then you have already created your future buyer. If at some point you win the lottery or you have a great job and make a lot of money, you can buy an Aston Martin. And this is exactly the type of brand engagement that creates good business cases. And now, before we get back to your questions, let's take a look at a use case. For all those who haven't had a lot to do with the metaverse, Stefan, I would like to give the floor to you. I think you've prepared a video. Maybe you can explain it. In the framework of the configurator platform for Aston Martin, we have created an enablement for dealers that they can use digital channels or the metaverse to create a direct connection to the interested possible buyers, and that works via a web streaming where the dealer can use a video call and a web session to show a vehicle. So if the dealer wants to show certain functionalities or features of the car, they can do it together with the customers, just like they would in an actual showroom. If the dealer revolves the car, he can do it in the metaverse as well, and he can make the possible buyer choose interior designs that he didn't know before, that he wasn't aware of maybe. So that might become very innovative solutions, and that's unique in the automotive world, and it will be rolled out next work for the Aston Martin. A very good configurator at some point reaches the point when it's been completely played by the customer. And the full potential of an offer might not even be tapped yet. So the physical world and the digital world must interact and compensate one another. So, which is why it is important to have upselling, cross-selling conversations to explain the customer why they should order certain parts or why they should choose a certain special color. And this configurator and the discussion, the upselling and cross-selling discussions need to be combined. And this is the step that Stefan was explaining. Now, let's watch the video.
Ja, ich würde sagen Applaus, dann gibt es auch ein bisschen Luft hier drin.
Big hand.
Könnt ihr euch zufächeln damit? Sehr schön.
Very beautiful.
Das heißt, was konkret ist jetzt damit möglich, was in einem bisherigen Web 2 Konfigurator?
What is new? What's possible now compared to the previous configurators?
Auf dem Rücksitz doch nochmal in die Ecke reinschauen. Ich würde es mir noch mal gerne sehen.
Allein dieser Punkt.
So,
dazu brauchen wir wirklich das Enablement der Game Engine.
to do certain features needs the enablement of a game engine. To really take a look at the least corner of a vehicle, just like in a showroom. For this to happen, you need a real-time rendering. The moment you expect the image, it needs to be created. And it is created by the server, and we use the identical technology for that, like Fortnite, to deliver a computer game. Which is why we are in the metaverse without the customers of Aston Martin knowing it. And that's exactly the added value that we see. We use the technology of the gaming room to convey the values and the fascination of a product to a customer, albeit the customer not being in the showroom. I must say, well, no worries, I won't forget the time. When I heard it, we've got a real showroom case, and I heard Aston Martin, I thought, yes, exactly. If your parents have too much money, or if you have been working for ages, you might afford to buy an Aston Martin. It's not the Fortnite players who can afford an Aston Martin. Well, of course, there are different target groups. There is the purchase target group that is obviously often the male older person, and they like to use that offer to being guided through this topic by a dealer or by the group. And they might also be consulted by their children. This also creates a nice interaction between the parents and their children. But you shouldn't underestimate the youth. The purchase decision, the sons and daughters and wives account for 80% in the purchase decision. They are the ones who choose the beautiful materials, they want to have a look at the beautiful stitching, they tend to have a say in the colors, and in the end, if they all can take part, this can create a significant increase in turnover. In the studies, you can always read that though it's the women who take the decision. I am now taking the decision that we'll have some questions now. Now I'm actually glad that I don't have to throw that cube so far. Just pass on the cube. Can you all hear me? You've been talking a lot, especially about central metaverses. I would like to know what you consider to be the challenges. What do you think will be the challenges of decentralized metaverses in the future for the companies? Good question. I think access is the challenge, because you need to create cases that lead to the fact that you can have the decentralized blockchain-based Web3 metaverses. Many fashion companies like Adidas, Prada, Gucci and others have already tried that out. Unfortunately, the metrics and the levers no longer work as previously. So it's important to understand the culture of Web3. Just like with Web2, MySpace, IC and so forth. The companies need to understand the Web3 culture, community building, Discord, interaction with a digital community. Only then will a company be able to be successful in a decentralized metaverse. But if you only try to have metrics and deal with them as in the past, when in terms of marketing and so forth, it will become a huge challenge. That was one of the reasons why we decided to make that version available free of charge. If you want to create a small digital world, you need a whole team of artists to do it, and it takes a very long time to create that environment and make it available. Talking about the metaverse, you no longer speak about a small space, but worlds, multiple worlds that are supposed to interact. So what we actually need for the metaverse to be successful is not only open standards, but we need everyone who is able to handle a computer to become a creator of the metaverse. And one thing that companies need to think about is how can we become part of the decentralized metaverse? My IP, my vehicle must be made available to the community. And of course, the one or other might experience that as a brand, I am not okay with the fact that my Aston Martin is running through Fortnite. But actually, this helps to increase engagement with the brand, and it certainly has more advantages than disadvantages because you get more supporters. So decentralized only works if we enable everyone who wants to engage. So we provide you with the learning, the assets, play around with it. It's so much fun and it's so easy. Stefan, you missed out on your part with MHP, but Epic Games, they did it. One question from the audience. Just pass on the cube.
Hallo.
Hello.
Erstmal richtig geil mit Aston Martin.
Aston Martin is just great. I'm about to get out my phone and to order one. We'll talk about the percentages, right? But you've been referring to the community. You configure cars via decors. It would be great to make this art piece available to other dealers. Is that a plan of yours? Because you made a huge effort to create that configurator. For example, matte paintings or smileys or interior designs. The target group is getting younger. Are you planning something like that to make this configurator available to other dealers? Well, actually, this is a pilot application. There is a limited number of people who use it. Here, in this case, the customer initiates the contact, and the dealer who is in the contact will be forwarded the lead. So, already today, through the moderated interaction, the dealer gets it, and the dealer can then use the application autonomously following a training. So this is how we've planned our rollout. We want to encourage our dealers to use it, and we want to train them in establishing that digital contact to their customers. You've been referring to employee training. What are the roles that companies have to look for? Is it the Metaverse officer or the security chief Metaverse officer, or what is it? What kind of vacancies should you be tendering? From MHP's perspective, we need colleagues who are implementing. We need software developers. We need, and that's what's interesting in the Metaverse debate. It's multi-trade. We need front-end people, we need creatives, we need developers, we need C++ plus developers. We need 3D artists who can create the digital product at the end. So we need very different trades, very different roles, who work across roles, across teams, across functions to create that world. One head of Metaverse, that's impossible. You need a whole team to do that. I think at Aston Martin we made the transition in 8 months. And this is only possible with a cross-functional, interdisciplinary, multi-role team that can create metaverse worlds. But if there was something like that, I think you would be the right candidate. So in the beginning we were talking about avatars. Taking a look at the MHP's Festivals 2023. What will be different then? What do you think, Patrick?
Patrick, das war die Einladung für nächstes Jahr.
Was this already the invitation for next year? Yes, of course. Well, I think I already appealed to Stefan. You were asking for possible roles. I think as a customer, we need customers who are open to innovation. When it comes to the images of the platform and also MHP, the expert can recognize the value creation earlier than others. But then, as a next step, you have to take on the entrepreneurial responsibility and deliver that as a service. I sell licenses, and in the end, it's my business case and the upselling through my application that makes profits. So next year I want to see MHP committed in several applications, and I don't want MHP to wait for the customers to pay. We'll get back to that later. Stefan, what happens 2023 here on the festival? Tim Sweeney has already said it. We will further open it. So in 2023 you can directly enter Fortnite. Everything that you create at home can be made available to others in Fortnite. You can interact with the creative islands. And this is quite a giant leap forward. Exciting. Stefan, the closing remarks. To be honest, I don't know. However, Sarah, let's take a picture. And then next year we can say, at least last year we were present, all of us, when next year we will only take part online. So this needs to be an orchestrated selfie.
So, ihr müsst jetzt hier gleich mal mit am besten.
So you should.
Coole Pose. Ich weiß auch immer nicht, was das bedeuten soll, eine coole Pose. Aber
pose together with us. Hands up.
So, Saallicht einmal an. Saallicht.
Switch on the light, please.
Und jetzt. Da.
Ja, ich mache noch eins so richtig geil dumm. So, hier, zack, zack. Und hier.
I'll take a couple of pictures.
Okay. So, das ist das Selfie, das wird gepostet.
That's the selfie, it will be posted.
Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Now you also know what we look like from behind. Thank you very much for your questions. Please return the cube, otherwise I'll be in big trouble. Thanks for taking part. Thank you for being here. I know we just have to have this topic again next year. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget the QR code. Please, a real, authentic big hand for my guests.